Is Edward Green, and I am a fourth year public relations and communications major. And so for my project, I decided to do Payless Shoesource, Costa Rica. So, as we continue to the next slide, basically, I talked about the history of Payless first, and so to go more into detail, basically, one of the goals of the company is becoming one of the most prominent footwear retailers globally by increasing their core footwear and accessories businesses with the ultimate goal of expanding basically every venture of their company. And so I included a profile of the company when it was established, which was in 1956. And originally the name was Payless National. And even currently it has about 30,000 employees. Its sales have dropped since then, but basically in 2003, the average they used to rake in was about $2.78 billion a year. And they are on the stock exchange market. Continuing, so as an independent public traded company, Payless operates in over 4,000 stores, and some of the first Payless outlets that were put in Alaska gave the company a presence in basically every state in America in 1996. Payless reared strong profits, about 13.6.5 million in total revenues in January 2000. Around this period of time, Payless was operating at about 4,500 stores in more than 220 parade of shoe stores. And the parade of shoe stores is basically the company's branch of shoes, which they have in unique areas depending on where the company is located. So as a later time, here comes the downfall of Payless. And basically, Payless, they brutally struggled in a harsh retail environment. Once competition like Walmart's and Target's and Kohl's, who also had competitive prices on their shoes and on their merchandise, started to come into the picture. And that's when Payless started to decline. So moving on, and I'm not exactly sure how to pronounce this, but Tina Par El Lama basically means ink for soul. That was the name of the campaign for the breast cancer awareness campaign for Payless Shoesource, Costa Rica. Payless, they endorsed breast cancer awareness in Costa Rica for years by promoting its yearly fundraising campaign for the National Foundation of Solidarity Against Breast Cancer. Again, Ink for the Soul, which was from Payless Shoesource. It was created thanks to a Colombian tattoo artist named Fabian. And so his story just inspired Payless to want to partner with him and then basically just amplify what he was doing. And so the essence of what he was doing was he was creating three-dimensional tattoos in the appearance of nipples for women who had undergone mastectomies. And for those who don't know what a mastectomy is, it's basically when a woman gets her breast removed, and then the loss of the nipple is no longer available. And so basically, like, the purpose of what Fabian does is he restores empowerment back of women who've experienced this before. Some women, studies say, have experienced a lot of anguish just because they're not comfortable in their bodies anymore because of this. And so what Fabian does is actually really amazing. The level of the complexity of these tattoos, the procedures are very high in cost, which is why Payless decided to sponsor and partner with Fabian in order to subsidize the cost by basically creating a campaign that would get sponsors to come on board and finance the work. So on to the next slide. So the campaign analysis. So I'm going to start with the output and objectives. So the goal of the campaign was to attract promising and committed donors and partnerships to help finance the project of providing women who underwent a mastectomy, who can't afford the nipple procedure, the confidence they deserve to feel empowered. Secondly, the campaign timetable. So with the timeline, I was not able to find too much information just because of how limited the information was online. But basically, what I have is from 2007 to 2016, Payless had began supporting Costa Rica in terms of their breast cancer awareness. And in 2017 was when the official launch of the campaign was taking place. In 2018, that was when basically the whole campaign took full circle, and the fruits of the labor of the campaign was reared when they ended up getting recognition of the campaign by taking home a very prestigious award in the public relations world. Some of the theme and key messages. The organization is trying to emphasize the importance of giving back to women who've had to endure mastectomy and restore their confidence through recreating a three-dimensional nipple. The organization has already helped 50 women who underwent a mastectomy. So now moving on to it's part 2 of the campaign analysis. So some of the medias and channels that was used in order to kind of bring about awareness of this campaign, Ink for the Soul. Since Payless joined the campaign, it began to be publicized through a rigorous outpour of content on Payless social media platforms like Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. And it also spread through using paid media like posters and advertisements in Payless stores and commercials. The campaign overall produced 87 media clippings, 315% increase of media coverage. It reached over 37 million people, including a total 10% of increase in funding, which is the most important part, the increase in funding, because in order for these procedures to actually happen, they need funding for it. So the implementation part. So the web pages and the information I used to research the campaign was very limited in terms of having detailed information. So what I did was, like, instead of me just like typing in Ink for the Soul campaign, basically I had to like do a little bit more research and go and find the artist who inspired this campaign, and then through him I started finding out all these different facts and things about the campaign itself. So basically, like, it took a while for me to get there, but I got there. The evaluation, so overall I would say that the campaign objectives were met and they were very successful. The campaign had already helped 50 women on the road to empowerment with their bodies. There was a 10% increasement in the funding for the initiative, and it is constantly growing even to this day. So now talking about the circuit of culture. So in terms of the production, so Payless is the main contributor in terms of like helping fundraise financially the campaign. All the contributions outside of what Payless is already giving, they're either from people who are stand buyers who just want to see other people get the procedure. There's also companies who want to partner as well. The funds, and the way it works is the funds are then transferred to the campaign, and then once the campaign, process is done, then they distribute it basically to Fabian, who would need the money in order to order any of the equipment needed to do the procedures and help any women in need. So the identity. So this is important to anyone who's been associated directly through family and friends who've experienced breast cancer. But I would say that the specific niche of people who've created this identity would include women who've had specifically a mastectomy done, and then also their families, because these things cost money and they have different impacts on people's lives. And from reading and researching, I've seen that the procedures have a 100% satisfaction rate. So the consumption part. So consumption in this case. So Fabian, who was inspired to help these women, he's never gotten the procedure done on himself, especially since he's a male. And the procedures are very costly. They cost between $700 to $1,000, but many women in the region of Costa Rica can't really afford that price, which is where the need of sponsors come in. So moving on to part 2, the circuit of culture, we're going to talk about representation. So Fabian, the tattoo artist, he goes about these procedures through consultations first. The next step in the process is then ordering the right supplies. And then later is when the preparation for the material used to create the three-dimensional nipple comes into play. Lastly, for the circuit of culture, we're going to talk about regulation. To this day, there are no rules necessarily put against this procedure, especially since it's technically a tattoo. There is no specific regulation on these nipple procedures. They are also basically based off the accreditation of being backed by a major company and having great reviews from people who have gotten them done before. So there's no actual rules. So it's not really illegal or legal. It's just kind of is what it is. It's very neutral. So Hofstad's cultural dimensions. So what I did was I looked up America's cultural dimensions and Costa Rica's, and as you can see, America is very individualistic in terms compared to Costa Rica, and Costa Rica is very feminine in comparison to America. Also, the uncertainty avoidance number is very much higher in Costa Rica than it is in America. And that could be explained just through America having such a masculine complex as a country. The power distance for both countries actually are very, very similar. It's only 5 points off of each other, and the time perspective is a little different as well, but still both low. And last but not least, both countries are indifferent in terms of the indulgence and the restraint. America is more so indulgent, as we do live in a country of excess, whereas in Costa Rica, people are a little bit more restrained in just how they live. So moving on. So Hofstad's part 2, culture dimensions. So basically, the campaign, Tinta para el Alma, which translates into Ink for the Soul, it works with international public relations in multiple ways. One of the ways includes how it being an American-based company, it supported a cause in a foreign country, and the campaign was created from the inspiration of a foreign tattoo artist. And the only thing that Payless did was they decided to join him and provide him with campaign resources that then globally amplified the cause, which then brought out the attention and everything that it needed in order to get to where it's at today. Payless influence resulted in a worldwide support and partnerships for the campaign. The success of the campaign ultimately brought Payless home a global Sabre Award, which is one of the highest awards in the public relations world, last year in 2018. So, some of my suggestions. I would say overall the process of researching the campaign has been very average. I do wish there was much more detailed information on the campaign, but I have no other comments, and the rest of my references to research.